CEO Live Talks.
I am Dr. Swannie Jett, and I have a passion for public health for over 30 years. Now, I'm in a position to affect change, and these are the critical conversations about health in our community with the people who can help me make those changes. Good morning. Welcome to CEO Live Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Swannie Jett, and today I have another good friend, Stewart Bridgman. Welcome to the show, sir.
Welcome. Thank you for having me on the show, Dr. Jett. Appreciate being here.
Well, I'm glad you could come. So, as I customarily do, I bring people on the show, and before we get to the nitty gritty,
Okay.
you have to tell me, where did you grow up at? Because I know your family traveled a lot. You was
Right.
missionary work.
Yeah.
And but let's talk about that. Where did you grow up at specifically?
Okay. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
6 weeks later, got up and left. We moved over to Taiwan, and we lived in Taiwan, a small town called Hualien.
Okay.
And we were over there for many years. And then I think we had a furlough in Nashville for a year.
Okay.
And then probably around second grade, we moved to Dhaka, Bangladesh. And we were there for 4 years. Then came back, lived in Atlanta, then Knoxville, Tennessee. And then my family moved up here. So I finished high school here in Louisville. And then went to college in Alabama for 1 year.
Okay.
Transferred to North Carolina, went to Warren Wilson College there. And then came back here for grad school.
So you just sped through everything, but we're gonna go back to Taiwan.
Okay, yeah.
Because I want to know,
Yeah.
did you learn a language in Taiwan? You said you was there for a while.
I can't even speak English very well, Dr. Jett. I never picked up a foreign language.
Right.
Everybody speaks English or whatever. I think I was so young in Taiwan that my parents were always around. My dad, to this day, he speaks fluent Taiwanese.
Okay.
And uses it at every opportunity he can. But I never picked up a foreign language.
Wow. So what did your daddy do?
My dad was, he's a pastor, but then he ran the mission, and he did some help for the Aborigines of Taiwanese in Taiwan, helping the people that were, I guess, original to Taiwan, helping them with their villages and doing stuff like that. Because during that time, Chiang Kai-shek and the Chinese came in and they kind of moved people around and resettled people. So he was there to kind of help them and run that mission. And then in Bangladesh, he started a hospital for people in a really underserved area, and kind of helped this area outside of the city too.
So how did he start a hospital? I mean, it's so long ago, but.
Yeah, they had a couple of other doctors, missionaries, and they just found some land, and they had another guy that he was an agriculturalist to kind of help with developing food for them. But then the doctors would so my dad would spend a lot of time just trying to get all the equipment that the doctors needed for that clinic to set it up, and get it. Everything had to be shipped into Bangladesh. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what did your mom do?
My mom, her job in Bangladesh was she worked for a company called Jute Works. So was women, it was a chance for them to get a career. In that society, a lot of times if you had a divorce or whatever, the women didn't have a ways of earning an income.
Okay.
So they could use jute was local, it's grown there. So they used that as a fiber to make crafts. And then she would sell that all over the world. Just Creation still, I think, sells stuff from them here in town.
That's interesting. And any siblings?
I have an older brother and an older sister.
Okay.
So yeah, my sister is a biologist in Taiwan now. She still lives there. And then my brother, he lives here in town.
So what made her go to Taiwan?
I relate our family a little bit like a refugee family or something, where the older siblings maybe are more connected to the country they grew up in, and she spent a lot of time growing up there. So she felt connected to that and wanted to be back there. She had mentoring there for her her career. And so that's what she felt really a connection there.
Yeah, I've had a couple of mentees from Taiwan. That's why I was wondering.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never visited, but I do one day want to go visit.
Yeah.
And so your parents traveled. Is that kind of like what got you into the health field?
I fell into it actually kind of by accident. Got my master. I had a choice of going to Savannah School of Art and Design or graduate school for mathematics. And at that time, my girlfriend, now wife, was at Transy. So I decided I would do mathematics and came here for mathematics. Didn't really understand how it was what I was gonna do with that.
Yeah, because I was thinking what do you do with mathematics besides probably teaching high school?
Right. So and there's some theory behind it, but I was just it wasn't what I kind of thought was going to be, and so I wasn't applying myself well.
Okay.
And so I went to UofL's counseling department, and they suggested art therapy, which I didn't even know existed was a field. So
I didn't know either. I learned later.
So I applied, and I got accepted to the art therapy program, and then I started working at Bridgehaven, and I just felt at that time, Bridgehaven, those members are stigmatized, so it kind of felt with that my missionary background, helping people that were, as missionaries, we'd see other missionaries, but we were like, we're in Bangladesh, one of the poorest countries in the world, and those people need all the help they can. And so in this culture, I feel like the SMI population needs all the help they can, and if I can do anything to help them and make their lives better, that's good.
So you've been at Bridgehaven now for almost 30 years.
Yes, right? 29 years.
So,
yeah.
And you have moved up through the ranks.
Right.
So talk a little bit about, because it's very difficult, I know, working at a job, just like in the military.
Okay.
Once you take command, you never take command of a unit that you sort of was raised in. So you sort of was raised in Bridgehaven, and then you become the CEO and president, and people have to respect you.
Right.
Right? Because before they was your friends, and now you're their boss.
Right.
Talk about that transition.
It's hard, it's hard for me to realize that when I walk in the room, I suck the air out of the room because of my title, right? So everybody's like, oh, the CEO's here,
Yeah,
and I feel like I was the same guy that started as a student, that was a student there. So I'm like, what's changed? What's happened? So there is something with your title and how your team responds to you, and you have to realize that you have to keep that professional boundary of what do I, how I talk to my team members so that they are now all peers with each other, you know, and you can go back and say, remember conversations I had when I wasn't their boss and now as their boss, and just keeping people, when people tell you, keep their stuff in confidence.
Right.
I feel like, again, being raised in the Presbyterian Church, that was helpful because I like to do things by committee, not the military structure. And so it takes a while for people to realize that in that committee structure, ultimately a decision has to be made, and that responsibility rests with me.
Right.
And so if that decision that we made as a group doesn't go well, I'm not going to say, well, such and such really pushed this in that committee, and it's their fault. It's my responsibility, but I really want my team to be there to support me as.
Got to have skin in the game, because even in the military, and I'm soon to retire from the military, but nothing gets done in an authoritative manner. At least for those leaders, they don't last long because they don't get the buy-in.
Right.
Because I put together teams that other people might have considered misfits, but they didn't value their quality and what they brought to the table.
Right.
But having a conversation, pulling out their qualities and meshing the team together, to me, that's sort of unique. But one thing I do, so I don't suck the air out of the room, is I come in the back door. So people don't know I'm in the room.
Right.
And then I can watch how people truly act.
Right.
Because they act different in front of you.
Right.
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 So, so you started as a sort of an intern, entry level. Did you hold other positions?
I started out, my first job is a therapist.
Okay.
So I had a therapist, I had a caseload of people.
Now, let's walk back, because a therapist, you don't walk in as a therapist because you got to do so many hours, right?
Correct. So I was a student and I co-led groups and I learned all that, doing individuals. And probably the biggest change for going from being a student to a therapist is all the paperwork
Right.
that you have to do.
Right.
So I had to learn all that paperwork and make sure I could do all the plans and stuff, because we didn't do a lot of that in school.
Right.
But then, so then my job was just manage that caseload and do the group activities that I was asked to do, and running a group of our members or working with a group as a supervisor, same skills.
At Park Duval Community Health Centers, we believe healthcare is for everybody, everywhere. Our 7 locations across Kentucky provide affordable, high-quality care no matter your income. We are Park Duval.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Park Duval. My name is Desmond Pritchard. I'm your Chief HR Officer here at Park Duval. I'm located normally 9 times out of 10 at the Wilson location. I'm beyond honored to support our community, to work with our community. There's a lot ahead of us. We have a lot we're ready to do, we're willing to do, and we can't wait to have you on board, to have you doing it with us.
We have an issue in the country. And, I saw something startling. I was driving through Knoxville, and I lived in Knoxville for 2.5 years.
Okay.
I don't know how long did you live there?
I was there for about 2 years.
Okay.
So no longer than that. I was there probably close to 4 years.
Yeah, how long ago?
I moved to Louisville in 1986, I think.
Okay.
So 82 to 86.
So I don't know if you've driven through Knoxville lately. If you
I
had
have.
Okay.
Not too long ago.
Yeah, I drove through downtown.
I have not. I've just driven around. Yeah.
No, I drove downtown because I wanted to see, how much the University of Tennessee has changed and the downtown area. And I saw more homelessness than I've ever seen. And that seems to be an epidemic that I'm seeing around the country. And so part of it, I want to contribute to mental health.
Okay.
Right? But there's a lot of other variables.
Correct.
Besides that, because I have worked on Homeless Coalition, try to provide sustainable housing. But what are you seeing that's really hitting at the fabric of America in terms of mental health?
I think that people are realizing that mental health is health. I think that when you have a mental health issue, it's often thought of as intellectual disability, but it's not. They're completely opposite. They're separate things. Like it's a Venn diagram. They can overlap. But there's stigma within the mental health community. There's stigma from outside of it. But if you're mentally ill, it's really hard for your brain to organize your thoughts and problem solve. And there's like a real brain fog that goes with that can lead to inability to make plans for yourself and plan for unexpected events.
Right.
And those things can lead to homelessness. But at Bridgehaven, most of our people have apartments that they live in or their own homes. There's a lot of estrangement from family members. But for the most part, I mean, we have some people that are homeless, but a lot have their housing, and we work with them to maintain that housing. So we can say that about, I think 70% of the people that come maintain their housing and can get apartments and stay in that.
Is there something, so I'm going to hypothesize,
Okay.
right? Because of capitalism,
Right.
right, or greed in some extent, we have seen a rise in homelessness.
Yes.
And because of capital gains or capitalism, we have seen a break in people's mental health.
I don't disagree with that. In Bangladesh, when we got there, there's so many people were sleeping on the streets that the government came through one night and put everybody in trucks and buses and drove them miles outside of the city. And they created another city overnight called Tongi. And that's the first place that the Presbyterian Mission worked with that area. That was that, and trying to help those people feed themselves and how to survive out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And when we came back to the States, of course, never saw any homelessness. But now, you know, I'm like, wow, we're like Bangladesh was back then. And people are like trying to figure out what to do. And it seems to me that it's access to low-income housing is an issue. Housing is expensive. You know, college students right now, just how am I going to ever be able to afford a house? That is what you hear them like feeling like, I got student loans, housing. How am I going to put all this together? And it's just expensive.
You know, I had somebody say this one day to me, and he was homeless, and he said, because I asked the question, why are you living on the streets, right? It actually was here in Louisville. And he said, well, I just didn't feel like going to work anymore. I've never heard this before. I ain't feel like going to work. I was working to live in an apartment, and I sort of just gave up on life, right?
Right.
So how many people do you run into like that? They just felt like they gave up on life.
There's a few, you know, when you're depressed, it's hard to just get up and go and manage that. And I would say that's common. In the mental health community, to get SSI, you have to be in a position where you cannot be trained for a job, or you train for a job and you can't do the job. And a lot of it is, you know, like, it's not the mental illness, so to speak, but it's a symptom of that illness, that ability to put your thoughts together, organize your thoughts, do task 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order, be able to remember what your supervisor asked you to do. Those kinds of things can impair work. Then there's also the social pressure, I think, of society, of sometimes of I have to perform. But those get in the way. When I think about a nonprofit, and sometimes I hear my peers say, well, you know, I save money. At Bridgehaven, my goal is to earn money for all of the Kentucky taxpayers.
Right.
I think that if you have 2 guys living in a tent, under a viaduct, they're doing that to save money. And if they're addicts, that addiction is also a huge barrier.
Yes.
And they need all that money they can get to fuel their addiction.
Right.
If there's a family that's living in a van, they're doing that to save money and to try to find adequate housing for the family is difficult.
Right.
That teenager that's like couch surfing from house to house is doing that to save money, and they don't have a career path or a career goal for themselves. And it's overwhelming when you're young to think about, you don't know all the jobs that are out there, right? So they're overwhelmed. So the nonprofit community are the ones that are going to help these three different situations, and it's going to cost money and resources. Mm-hmm. But when that teenager is on a career path and is making money, that teenager is earning money for their landlord, they're paying LG&E, water company, they're paying all bills, and we all are enriched by that. Mm-hmm. That family, when they are their kids are going to school regularly, it's going to enrich the community. It's going to take a lot of work to help those guys get out of that tent. They're at that addiction. You got to get through that. And then what was the underlying issue that led to that addiction? Yeah. And so to me, I think that government should fund these nonprofits to help us do this hard work, because we all benefit when it happens. If you don't fund it, you're funding drug dealers.
Right.
What you show up in is not what matters, it's how you show up.
Right.
So if you can articulate from your heart, they'll forget what you got on.
Because a lot of people want to Google medicine now.
Yes.
And it's very difficult.
It is. Would you Google if you had some sort of ailment that you were curious about?
I'm an epidemiologist by training.
Okay,
so.
fair, so you know.
Folks, what are your credentials? And sometimes you have to pull them out and say, okay, here's this degree, here's that. You're like, oh, okay, maybe we should listen to you.
We're going to build a $40 million facility that allows parents to sleep better at night.
You know, I was watching this thing on PTSD, and they were talking about people in war, and they were like, you know, human beings are not wired to perennially be on alert, you know, in a state of alert.
Right,
and that's what happens when you're at war.
Yeah, your cortisol level continues to go up, the adrenaline gland.
And that's what's happening to Black people.
At Park Duval Community Health Centers, we believe healthcare is for everybody, everywhere. Our 7 locations across Kentucky provide affordable, high-quality care no matter your income. We are Park Duval.
But that sounds, you know, in today's society, and with things going on with the Trump administration, they want to cut SSI.
They do. They do.
So, I mean, what do you say to that? Because you're talking about the benefits, but I don't know if the other side knows the benefits.
I think if we sit around a campfire and you talk about it, working brings purpose and meaning to people's lives. We all have to have purpose and meaning. I want everyone at Bridgehaven to work and have a job. Right. But currently their job for many of them is to learn how to manage their mental health and manage their mental illness, which 20 years ago we would say that's not even possible. Maintenance was the goal. Right. But we don't believe in maintenance anymore. We believe in recovery. We want those people to actually be out and be purposeful and active in their communities. Yeah. And so I think, you know, when you cut these things and you cut services, you're going to exacerbate the problem. It's just going to get worse. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So, or is the expectation that we have more disposable income so that we can fund those charities? And if that's the case, then billionaires need to be funding charities. We need to hear about that every day.
They're talking about doing away with that as well.
Right. Well, I've heard Morgan McGarvey talking. He feels like that bill will pass. They didn't want to give Biden the win,
Right.
but it's a possibility that to be able to use tax write-offs or whatever. But we also know, like, to me, the federal government is there to fund little things that we can't just do as a society. So, for instance, if funding right now, it seems to go breast cancer, autism, or there's a lot of money out there for it. But if you have a rare kind of cancer, there may not be the resources that are there for breast cancer.
Right.
Not to say that all cancers need support.
Right.
So therefore, I think it's good to have a bigger funding source to fund these other programs that may not be.
There's a lot of people that might disagree that government don't need to be funding nonprofits. And
Right.
even though I always say Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois said that capitalism was going to put America on the brink, right? Of all the issues that we see in society, from mental health to poverty to et cetera, right? So in that premise, you would think the government has a responsibility to help people with mental health issues and a variety of other issues. What do you say to that?
Well, if you think about economics, Adam Smith felt that the workforce needs to be well educated, so schools should be free, and that the government should take care of those people with disabilities. So that's where someone's on the libertarian side of view, I think, then where is that in this?
Right.
And are we a democracy or a capitalistic society where if you have money, you can have a bigger say about how decisions are made?
Right.
And to me, as a society, we should be taking care of those that have need. And I think everybody believes that. I think if you talk to every individual, they're like, yeah, that they need it. If we take money to fund salaries at Bridgehaven without outcomes,
Right.
that's a waste of taxpayer money. I don't want to be part of that.
Right.
But we have an ability to bill Medicaid and Medicare. But if those funds aren't there, that is a concern. So what is the outcome by cutting some of this stuff and saying, hey, some of these people, it seems like since Reagan, we've been dealing with waste and fraud.
Right.